The rain hammered against the diner windows like ammunition, each drop exploding into smaller fragments that streaked down the glass. Evelyn Harrow sat across from Walter Reed in the back booth of Rosie's diner, the one with the ripped vinyl seat that Rosie never fixed because, as she said, perfect things make people nervous. Ghost. Evelyn's 11-year-old husky mix lay hidden beneath the table, his gray-white fur pressed against Walter's worn boots. 5 months she'd been bringing this man breakfast, 5 months of the same bench by the library, the same navy blanket she'd given him at Christmas, the same careful distance between kindness and charity. Now Walter was tearing his paper napkin into perfect squares, arranging them in a grid pattern on the scarred formica table. 1 plus 2 and 2, 3, 4 pause 5, 6. His left hand, missing the ring and pinky fingers, trembled slightly. Your boy wore his watch on his right wrist. Evelyn's spoon stopped halfway to her coffee cup. The diner sounds hissing griddle, morning news droning from the corner TV, Rosie humming while she worked, all faded to white noise. What did you say? Walter didn't look up from his napkin squares. February 1822, Fort Coleman. Accounting office, they stick us underground like moles. Young captain comes in, real polite. Had questions about fuel invoices. He moved square number 7 slightly to the left. Diesel for units that run on gas, gas for bases using solar panels, numbers that sang lies to anyone who could hear. The coffee cup rattled against the saucer as Evelyn set it down. Nathan had been at Fort Coleman in February 24. He'd called her, mentioned something about irregularities in supply chains, but she'd been distracted by a client crisis, half listening. You knew Nathan. You knew my son. Smart boy. Careful. Wore his watch on the right, though he was left-handed. Said it was so it wouldn't catch on his weapon. Walter finally looked up, his pale blue eyes suddenly terribly clear. Same as his mother wears hers. Evelyn's hand moved involuntarily to her watch. She'd switched it to her right wrist after Nathan's funeral, some desperate attempt to carry a piece of his habits, his choices, his life forward. How could you possibly? Because I gave him the evidence that got him killed. The words landed like a physical blow. Ghost whined softly, sensing the shift in emotional temperature. Rosie looked over from the counter, coffee pot in hand, but Evelyn couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what Walter had just said. Murdered, Walter continued, his voice flat as old paint. Not suicide like they told you. Not depression, not PSD, not any of those lies they wrapped his death in. Nathan Harrow was murdered because he found proof that American soldiers were dying from deliberately faulty equipment that made certain people very, very rich. Stop. Evelyn's voice came out strangled. Just stop. But Walter reached into his sock, his actual sock, and pulled out a small USB drive wrapped in plastic. He placed it on the table between them, next to napkin square number 12. 9 years. I've carried this. 9 years waiting for someone who wouldn't use it for gain, for leverage, for political points. Yesterday, Mrs. Harrow, you asked my last name, 9 months of breakfasts, and yesterday was the first time you asked who Ashili was. Walter Reed, Evelyn whispered. Oh, God, you're the Walter Reed, the whistleblower who disappeared, the coward who ran. Walter's fingers drummed against the table thumb, index, middle, the stumps of the others, phantom tapping. Had a wife, Margaret, daughter, Sophie. Good job. Nice house in Arlington, football Sundays with the neighbors. Then Captain Nathan Harrow walked into my office with questions about numbers that didn't add up. The rain intensified, turning the window into a waterfall. Rosie had stopped pretending not to eavesdrop, standing frozen behind the counter. Even the morning news seemed to quiet. as if the universe itself was leaning in to hear. "There were 2 ledgers," Walter said. "Official one for the Pentagon, real one for the thieves. $20 million diverted, but not just stolen, used to buy functional equipment that was sold elsewhere, while defective gear went to our troops. Your son's unit lost 3 men because their armor couldn't stop bullets. It was rated for." "Lisa Webb," Evelyn said, remembering the memorial service. "Carlos Mendez, Troy Washington. You know their names. Nathan wrote about them. Every week, a letter about his soldiers. He called them his kids, even though some were older than him." Her voice broke. "He blamed himself when they died. Said a better captain would have seen it coming." Walter slid the USB drive across the table. "He did see it coming. That's why they killed him." Who killed my son?" "General David Thornton gave the order. Senator Harold Morrison knew about it after the fact. But the network, Mrs. Harrow. The network goes deeper than you can imagine. Defense contractors, Pentagon officials, congressmen. Your son stumbled into a web that generates billions in blood money." Evelyn picked up the drive. It weighed nothing. This thing that apparently held the truth about Nathan's death. Why now? Why tell me now? "Because Morrison died 5 days ago. Stroke in his office. Very convenient timing. And because Walter's clarity seemed to flicker, his eyes going distant before snapping back. Because they've tried to kill me 4 times, and I'm tired of running, tired of hiding, tired of being the only one who knows what they did to that good boy who just wanted his soldiers to come home safe." Ghost emerged from under the table, placed his head on Evelyn's lap. She ran her fingers through his fur, trying to ground herself in something real, something solid. "You said you gave Nathan evidence. What exactly did you give him? Routing numbers, account transfers, enough breadcrumbs for a smart analyst to follow." Walter's face crumpled slightly. "I thought I was being careful. Thought I was protecting him by not giving him everything. But they were watching. The moment he accessed those accounts, he was marked. The suicide note," Evelyn said slowly. 3 words. "I'm sorry, Mom." Nathan would never, he was a writer. Couldn't send a text without proper punctuation. A 3-word suicide note. They didn't know him well enough to fake it properly, but they knew enough to make it plausible. Young veteran, lost some men, history of asking uncomfortable questions. The VA was all too ready to chalk it up to PTSD. The bell above the diner door chimed. 3 men in military uniforms entered, water streaming from their rain gear. The lead man, a colonel by his insignia, scanned the diner until his eyes locked on Evelyn. "Mrs. Harrow, I'm Colonel Mason. We need to talk about your son." Walter's hand shot out, gripped Evelyn's wrist with surprising strength. "Don't trust anyone in uniform, not until you know whose payroll they're really on." But Colonel Mason's next words froze everyone in place. "Ma'am, we know Mr. Reed gave you evidence. We're here because yesterday someone tried to kill you. You didn't drink your tea last night because your dog knocked it over. That wasn't an accident. Ghost saved your life." Evelyn looked down at Ghost, who was now standing, facing the soldiers with an alertness she'd never seen in him before. "What are you talking about?" "Your dog is a retired military working dog, Mrs. Harrow. Nathan arranged for you to adopt him before his last deployment, and Ghost has been doing exactly what he was trained to do, protecting his handler's family." The USB drive felt like it was burning through her palm. 9 years of lies were unraveling in a rain-soaked diner, and Evelyn Harrow was about to learn that her son's death was just the visible tip of an iceberg of betrayal that would shake the foundations of everything she believed about service, sacrifice, and honor. Walter released her wrist and went back to arranging his napkin squares. The boy knew, he muttered. Smart boy always knew they'd come for his mother. Colonel Mason stepped forward, and Evelyn noticed his hand wasn't on his weapon. It was extended, palm up, like someone approaching a wounded animal. Mrs. Harrow, we have about 15 minutes before the people who poisoned your tea realize it didn't work. We can protect you, but only if you come with us now. The rain had become a roar. Rosie stood frozen behind her counter. Ghost pressed against Evelyn's leg, a low growl building in his chest, not at Mason, but at something outside, something approaching through the storm. Time slowed. Decision point. Trust the uniform that might have killed her son, or stay with the broken old man who'd just shattered her world. Walter looked up from his squares, and for one moment his eyes were completely clear. Go, he said, but take the drive. Nathan died for what's on there. Don't let them bury it with him. Before we continue, please leave a like and subscribe. Let me know which city you're watching from. Now, let's get back to the story. The diner door exploded inward. Not from force, from synchronized precision. Two men in civilian clothes, movements too fluid for normal citizens. Ghost lunged before Evelyn could process the threat. 70 pounds of trained muscle intercepting the first man's reach toward his jacket. Colonel Mason's sidearm cleared leather. Federal agents, stand down. The second man already had his weapon half drawn when Rosie's cast-iron skillet connected with his skull. He dropped, coffee pot shattering against the checkerboard linoleum. Rosie stood over him, breathing hard, gray hair escaping from her hairnet. Nathan Harrow saved my grandson in Kandahar, she said to no one in particular, carried him 2 miles with a bullet in his shoulder. The first attacker tried to shake Ghost off. The dog had his forearm, not mauling, but controlling. The way military dogs are trained, maximum restraint, minimum damage. Walter hadn't moved from his booth, still arranging napkin squares as if nothing was happening. Mason zip-tied the conscious attacker's wrists. His partner, Major Foster Evelyn, noticed the name tape now checked the unconscious one's pulse. Young woman, maybe 30, hands steady, despite the chaos. Cleanup team's 3 minutes out, Foster said. Phone pressed to her ear. Local LEOs are being redirected. Mrs. Harrow, Mason's voice cut through Evelyn's paralysis. We need to move. Now. Evelyn's fingers found Ghost's collar. The dog released his grip immediately, backed against her leg, blood on his muzzle, the attacker's, not his. Nathan had sent Ghost to her 2 weeks before his last deployment. He's getting too old for this work. Mom needs somewhere quiet. But Ghost had never been old, never been tired. He'd been protection. Walter comes with us, Evelyn heard herself say. Ma'am, Mr. Reed is, Walter comes or I don't move. Mason's jaw worked. Through the shattered door, Evelyn could see a black SUV idling in the rain, exhaust mixing with morning fog. Captain Park sat behind the wheel. She recognized him from Nathan's unit photos, the ones she'd studied until she knew every face, every name, every soldier her son had loved enough to die for. Mr. Reed, Mason addressed Walter directly. Will you come? Walter looked up from square number 18. His eyes did that shifting thing, present, absent, present again. The boy's mother wants me to come. Yes, he stood, left his perfect grid of napkin squares on the table. Then I come. Foster's phone buzzed. Her face went pale. Sir, Morrison didn't die of a stroke. Toxicology just came back. Polonium. The SUV's heater blasted stale air that smelled like government-issue upholstery cleaner. Evelyn sat between Walter and Ghost in the back. The USB drive, cutting into her palm, through her clenched fist. Foster drove now, while Mason twisted around from the passenger seat, phone pressed to his ear. Captain Park followed in a second vehicle with Rosie witness protection, he'd said, though Rosie had grabbed her purse and locked the diner's register like she was just stepping out for groceries. "Polonium," Mason repeated into the phone. "Yes, sir. Same signature as the Litvinenko case." His eyes met Evelyn's in the rearview mirror. Morrison was murdered, professional hit, made to look natural until the autopsy. Walter's breathing wheezed beside her. Up close, she could smell the layers of him mothballs from the donated coat, Irish spring soap from the Y, something medicinal underneath. His hands shook against his thighs, not from age but from something else. Withdrawal, maybe, or memory. "The second ledger," Walter said suddenly, loud enough that Foster's hands twitched on the wheel. Morrison kept it in a wall safe behind his wife's portrait. Combination was his unit's CAD edit from Vietnam. November 15th, 1960. "How do you know that?" Mason lowered his phone. "Because I helped him install it. 2008. Back when I thought he was just careful." Walter's good fingers drummed against his knee. 20 million sounds like a lot, Mrs. Harrow, but it was penny ante compared to the real operation. Your boy found the test run. The SUV turned onto Highway 101 windshield wipers fighting the rain. Evelyn could see the Pacific through gaps in the trees, gray and churning. Nathan had loved the ocean, said it reminded him that some things were bigger than war. "Tell me," she said, "everything, from the beginning." Walter's head rolled back against the headrest. "Fort Coleman, February 18th, 2000, Tuesday. I know because I had a dental appointment that afternoon I never made. Your son walks into my office carrying a banker's box of fuel receipts. Real polite. 'Sir, I'm hoping you can help me understand something.' That's how he started." Ghost shifted, pressing his weight against Evelyn's leg. Through the fabric of her jeans, she could feel him trembling, not fear, but readiness. The receipts were wrong. Diesel for Humvees that ran on JP, aviation fuel for ground vehicles, like someone was just picking fuel types at random, billing the government, then selling the real fuel elsewhere. Nathan had tracked 17 million in false purchases over 6 months. "But you said 20 million. "The other 3 million was for equipment that never existed. Ghost units." Walter laughed, bitter and short. "Sorry. Phantom units. Fake battalions on paper. Real money in accounts." Mason's phone buzzed. He answered, listened. Then, "Mrs. Harrow, did Nathan ever mention someone named Sarah Chen?" Evelyn's stomach dropped. "His contact at the Pentagon. She died in a car accident 2 weeks after Nathan." "Not an accident. We just found her files hidden in a storage unit in Bethesda. She'd been documenting everything, including recordings." Walter's wheezing got worse. "Chen was brave, braver than me. She wore a wire to meetings. You knew her. Nathan introduced us. February 20th, 2 days after he came to my office." Walter's eyes went distant, focusing on something beyond the rain-streaked window. "We met at a Starbucks in Crystal City. She was maybe 28, 100 pounds, soaking wet. But when she looked at you like being X-rayed, she knew Morrison was my boss, knew I'd signed off on false reports. But she also knew I'd started refusing. That's why Nathan came to me." The SUV slowed. Traffic ahead, not unusual for Highway 101, but Foster's knuckles went white on the steering wheel. "Road work," she said. But Mason was already pulling his sidearm. "No construction scheduled on this stretch." He spoke into his phone. "Park, you seen this roadblock? 3 vehicles, not local PD." Evelyn's mouth went dry. Ghost stood, barely fitting in the confined space, nose pressed against the window. His breath fogged the glass. Walter grabbed Evelyn's wrist. His grip was stronger than his trembling suggested. "The drive, whatever happens. Don't let them have it." "Mr. Reed, Listen. February 1st, Nathan came back to my office. Different this time, urgent. Said Chen had recordings of Morrison discussing wet work. Military terminology for assassination, so Morrison was planning to kill someone. The traffic ahead hadn't moved. Foster put the SUV in reverse. But a van pulled up behind them, blocking retreat. Who? Evelyn's voice came out strangled. Who was Morrison planning to kill? Walter's eyes met hers. For once, completely clear. You, Mrs. Harrow. The order was for you. Nathan died trying to stop it. The van's doors opened. Men in tactical gear stepped out, weapons raised. Not police, not military, something else. Ghost's growl filled the SUV, primal and low, the sound of a weapon preparing to fire. Mason spoke very quietly into his phone. Eagle's Nest, this is Shepherd 1. We're compromised. Authorization, Tango 77. Evelyn didn't know what that meant, but Foster's sharp intake of breath told her enough. Sir, that's lethal force authorization. Yes, Mason said, checking his weapon. It is. The men from the van advanced through the rain, their movements professional, coordinated. One of them raised something, not a weapon, a photograph, even through the rain and distance. Evelyn could see it, Nathan's face, crossed out in red ink. Beneath it, barely visible, another photo, hers. The photograph trembled in the rain. The tactical officer holding it took another step forward, his free hand moving to his earpiece. Ghost's muscles coiled beneath his fur. Evelyn felt it through her palm, pressed against his back. Stand by, Mason said into his phone. Then louder, through the cracked window. Federal jurisdiction. Stand down. The lead operator, black gear unmarked, face obscured by tactical mask, spoke into his throat mic. His words were inaudible through the rain, but his body language shifted. Confusion. He lowered the photographs, looked back at the van. Foster's phone lit up. She grabbed it, listened, then thrust it at Mason. Sir? Priority override from Pentagon. Mason listened for 3 seconds. His shoulders dropped. Understood. He holstered his weapon. Mrs. Harrow, we're clear. These are our people. What? The tactical team was already withdrawing, moving back to their van with the same precision they'd shown advancing. The lead operator pulled off his mask, Asian features, maybe 40. Exhausted eyes. He gave Mason a short nod before climbing into the vehicle. Special Activities Division, Mason explained as the van pulled away and traffic began moving. They've been following you for 2 years. Evelyn's hands shook. Following me. Protection detail. Covert after Chen died. NSA intercepted chatter about targeting Nathan's mother. We couldn't approach you directly without confirming you were clean, but we could watch. Walter laughed a sound like grinding gears. Watch, like watching Nathan. Lot of good that did. Foster accelerated past the now clear roadblock site. Construction cones knocked over, no workers in sight. The whole thing had been staged. That was a test, Evelyn said, not a question. Michael Morrison's idea, Mason admitted. He needed to know if you'd run or fight. If you'd protect the evidence, Morrison's son. He's waiting at the base, has been, since yesterday. Mason turned to face her fully. Mrs. Harrow, Michael Morrison isn't who you think. He's been building a case against his father for 3 years. Nathan's death was the final piece. The SUV turned off Highway 101 onto a service road, chain-link fence topped with razor wire, a guard station that looked abandoned until 2 Marines stepped out, weapons ready, but not raised. Foster showed credentials. The gate opened. Joint Base Lewis McCord materialized through the rain-concrete buildings, perfect lawns despite the weather, American flag snapping in the wind. Nathan had shipped out from here. Final deployment. Evelyn had stood in the rain then too, watching his unit board the transport. They pulled into an underground garage. Fluorescent lights after the gray morning made everyone look corpse pale. Another SUV was already parked, helping Rosie out. Her purse clutched against her chest like armor. "Through here!" Mason led them to an elevator that required his palm print and a 6-digit code. Walter stumbled. Evelyn caught his arm, felt bones through too thin fabric. "When did you last eat?" "Yesterday. Your sandwich." "That was 2 days ago." Walter, his confusion flickered. Was it the elevator descended? No numbers on the panel, just unmarked buttons Mason pressed in sequence. Ghost's ears popped. Evelyn saw him swallow, shake his head. Basement conference room. Military-grade bland beige walls, gray carpet, fluorescent hell. But someone had tried fresh coffee on a side table. Pastries from a real bakery. Not commissary garbage. And standing by the window overlooking a parking garage. Michael Morrison, 35 years old, Lieutenant Colonel tabs on his shoulders. But what struck Evelyn was his hands. He held them behind his back. Parade rest. But she could see the wedding ring, the calluses from riding, a bandage on his thumb, human details on the son of the man who destroyed her world, Mrs. Harrow. He didn't move from the window. "I know you have no reason to trust me." "You're right." He turned then, Harold Morrison's jaw, but his mother's eyes brown, soft, carrying weight. "My father started having nightmares in 2018, would wake up saying Nathan's name. Mom thought he was having an affair with someone named Nathan. Hired a private investigator." As Michael pulled a folder from the table, thick with the documents, the PI found something else. Bank accounts, transfers, a paper trail Dad thought he'd buried. He opened the folder, revealing photocopied pages covered in Harold Morrison's handwriting. And this, his confession. Written 2 years ago, never sent. Evelyn approached the table. Walter hung back, counting floor tiles. Ghost stayed between them, watchful. The handwriting was precise, military trained. February 19th, Nathan Harrow came to my office. Polite young man, asked about fuel discrepancies. I told him it was a filing error. He knew I was lying. I saw it in his eyes, the same look my son gets when he's disappointed in me. Dad wrote 17 pages, Michael said, detailing every transaction, every participant, but he couldn't send it, couldn't pull the trigger on his own reputation. So he let my son die instead. No, Michael's voice cracked. He tried to stop it. The order came from General Thornton. Dad fought it, said Nathan could be redirected, reassigned to Alaska, anywhere remote. Thornton said it was too late. Nathan had already contacted Chen, already pulled the financial threads. Foster's phone buzzed. She answered, face going pale. "Sir, we have a problem. Thornton's here." "Here?" Mason spun. "He can't be. He's under house arrest in Virginia. Released 2 hours ago. Federal judge, emergency hearing. He's at the main gate with a congressional subpoena." Walter stopped counting tiles. His whole body went rigid. "He's here to kill me. Only witness left. Who matters?" "We won't let that happen," Mason said. "You can't stop it." Walter pulled something from his coat, not the USB on something else. A pill bottle, prescription label torn off. "Thornton gave me these 9 years ago. Said they were for my anxiety. I never took them. Had them tested last year, cyanide capsules. Slow acting. Would have looked like heart failure." Michael Morrison moved then, putting himself between Walter and the door. "Mr. Reed, you're under military protection. Your father said the same thing to Nathan." The room went silent, except for the fluorescent ballast humming overhead. Evelyn looked at the confession pages. Harold Morrison's careful handwriting documenting his own crimes. Then at Michael, standing there in his father's shadow, trying to make it right. "Show me the rest," she said. "Everything your father wrote." Michael handed her the folder. Page after page of admissions, names, dates, amounts. But on the last page, something different. A list of names under the heading, "Silenced." Sarah Chen, Nathan Harrow, Marcus Webb Walter's predecessor, Jennifer Santos, DOD auditor, Gregory Volkov contractor, who refused to deliver faulty equipment. And at the bottom, in fresher ink, Walter Reed pending. Evelyn looked up at Walter. "You knew you were on a kill list. Why do you think I stayed homeless, harder to poison a man who eats from different garbage cans every day?" Mason's radio crackled. "Sir, General Thornton's at the security checkpoint. He's demanding Reed be released to his custody." "On what authority?" "He says Reed's still technically active duty, never officially discharged. Thornton's invoking command authority." Evelyn felt the SB drive in her pocket, the edges cutting into her hip. 9 years of evidence. But evidence only mattered if the witness lived to testify. "Where's your father now?" she asked Michael. "Arlington National Cemetery. We buried him yesterday." Michael's voice dropped. "Closed casket. The polonium there wasn't much left to bury." "Who else knows about the poisoning?" "Just us. Toxicology hasn't released the report." Through the window, Evelyn could see vehicles pulling into the parking garage, black SUV, government plates. Too many for one general's escort. Mason saw them too. "That's not Thornton's detail. That's a full extraction team," Ghost growled, low and continuous. The fur on his spine stood vertical. Walter walked to the window, placed his palm against the glass. 47 soldiers died from the faulty equipment. I remember all their names, recite them every night. Nathan would have been 48. Would have been. Evelyn moved in beside him. Walter turned to her, eyes clear and terrible. "Mrs. Harrow, your son isn't dead." The room contracted around Evelyn. Walter's words hung in the air like spent ammunition. Her knees buckled. Michael Morrison caught her elbow, guided her to a chair. Ghost pressed against her legs, whining. "Mr. Reed." Mason's voice carried forced calm. "Nathan Harrow's death was confirmed. Military identification, dental records." Walter's fingers traced patterns on the window glass, leaving oil streaks in the condensation. Body was cremated within 12 hours. Against Jewish tradition, Nathan's father was Jewish. Evelyn would never have agreed to cremation that fast. I didn't agree. The words scraped from Evelyn's throat. They said it was military protocol, suspicious death, overseas returnee. Nathan died in a hotel room in Arlington. Walter turned from the window. "What overseas returnee?" Foster typed rapidly on her laptop. "Pulling the death certificate now?" Her fingers stopped. There are 2 death certificates. Different dates. February 22nd in Arlington, February 20th in Kandahar. "The Kandahar certificate is real," Walter said. "Someone died over there. Got shipped home in Nathan's box." Mason grabbed Foster's laptop, scanned the screen. DNA test was ordered, but never completed. Paperwork shows administrative delay. Then cremation authorized by... He stopped. "By who?" Michael demanded. "General David Thornton." The parking garage below filled with more vehicles. Evelyn counted 12 SUVs now. Too many for an extraction. This was an occupation. Walter pulled a wallet from his coat, cracked leather, held together with rubber bands. From behind a faded photo of a young woman holding a baby, he extracted a folded paper, handed it to Evelyn with shaking hands. "January 9th, 2020, Seattle VA Hospital. I was there for pneumonia." The paper was a medical form, torn at the edges, patient name blacked out, but the attending physician's notes were visible. Patient exhibits severe PTSD following witnessed execution of commanding officer. Recommends immediate psychiatric evaluation. Claims to have evidence of war crimes. Possible delusional episode at the bottom in different handwriting. Patient transferred to Ward 7B for extended observation. Ward 7B doesn't exist on public records, Walter said. It's in the basement, unofficial, where they put people who've seen too much. You're saying Nathan was there in Tudunki? Evelyn's hands shook, holding the paper. I'm saying someone was there. Someone who looked like your son. 4 years after he supposedly died. Beard, lost weight, scar across his left eyebrow. Nathan didn't have a scar. He would have after February 20th in Kandahar. Foster's laptop chimed. Facial recognition hit. Security footage from Seattle, VA, January 9th, 20. She turned the screen toward Evelyn. Grainy image. A man in a wheelchair being pushed down a hallway. Profile view. Partial, but the jaw structure, the way he held his shoulders, even sedated. That's not Nathan, Evelyn said, but her voice cracked. Mason's radio erupted. Base commander on site. Thornton's with him. They're coming down. We need to move. Michael grabbed the Morrison confession documents, shoved them into a burn bag. There's a secondary exit through the mechanical room. No! Evelyn stood. The room swayed, but she stayed vertical. If Thornton wants Walter, he goes through me. Mrs. Harrow. My son died. She stopped, started again. My son was murdered protecting evidence. I'm not running from the man who killed him. The elevator hummed, descending. Ghost moved to the door, stood perfectly still, not aggressive posture, watchful, the way Nathan had trained him to wait for threat assessment before engaging. Walter counted under his breath. 15 seconds to this floor at standard descent rate. Mason, get Rosie out, Evelyn ordered. She's got nothing to do with this. Rosie stepped forward from where she'd been silent in the corner. Like hell, I served Nathan breakfast every Sunday when he was stationed here. Boy always ordered the same thing, scrambled eggs, wheat toast, black coffee with 4 sugars. Said his mom never let him have that much sugar at home. The elevator stopped. Electronic lock disengaged. General David Thornton entered first, 81 years old, but carried himself like he was still 30, spine rigid, shoulders square. Walker folded and carried by an aide. Behind him, Base Commander Williams, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. 4 military police, weapons holstered but hands ready. Colonel Morrison? Thornton's voice could have etched glass. Your father would be disappointed. My father is dead. Michael didn't move from his position beside Evelyn. Polonium poisoning. According to the toxicology report that just hit my desk, Thornton's face didn't change. Harold always was careless about what he ate. You son of a... Foster started forward. Mason caught her arm. Mr. Reed. Thornton focused on Walter. You're under arrest for violation of the Espionage Act, theft of classified documents. Those documents detail theft of military resources, Mason interrupted. Mr. Reed is a protected whistleblower. Mr. Reed is active duty military who never received discharge papers, making him subject to military justice. Thornton pulled a document from his jacket, signed by the Judge Advocate General an hour ago. Evelyn took the paper. Legal language swam before her eyes, but the meaning was clear. Walter could be detained indefinitely, tried in a closed military court, sentenced without public record. You're afraid of what he knows, she said. I'm protecting national security. Thornton's right eye twitched, barely visible, but Evelyn caught it. Nathan used to say everyone had a tell. Sergeant Reed suffered a psychotic break in 20s. His testimony would be unreliable at best. Sergeant, Walter laughed. I was a major, Finance Corps, 12 years. Your reduction in rank was processed when you went AWOL. Thornton gestured to the MP. Arrest him! The MP stepped forward. Ghost's growl filled the room, not warning anymore. Promise. Ghost, hold, Evelyn commanded. The dog froze but stayed ready. Foster's laptop beeped. She glanced at it, then did a double take. Sir, you need to see this. On the screen, a video file. Timestamp from 1 hour ago. Michael Morrison's wife, Emma, sitting in what looked like a home office. Her face was streaked with tears, but her voice was steady. If you're watching this, they've probably already taken Michael. This morning at 0500 General Thornton visited our house. Offered Michael a choice: stop the investigation or our children disappear. Not killed, disappeared, like Nathan Harrow. Evelyn's blood turned to ice water. Emma continued. Michael refused, so I'm releasing everything. Pentagon servers, Thornton's personal files, 17 years of emails, it's all online now. WikiLeaks, major newspapers, DOJ servers, the kill list, the diverted funds, the names of every soldier who died from deliberately faulty equipment. Thornton pulled out his phone. His face went from red to white as he scrolled. There's more, Emma's recording said. Michael found something his father hid. A recording from February 10th, the day before Nathan was supposedly killed in Afghanistan. New audio began. Harold Morrison's voice, younger, stressed. Thornton wants the Harrow kid eliminated. I've stalled, but he's going around me. Contracted it out. Some black ops unit that doesn't officially exist. Then Thornton's voice, unmistakable, even 9 years younger. Harold, the boy's a problem, but we're not monsters. We don't kill American soldiers. Then what? We disappear them. Extraordinary rendition. There's a facility in Romania. Unofficial. They can hold him indefinitely. That's kidnapping. That's solving a problem. The mother gets a body, some John Doe from the morgue. Military handles the funeral. Case closed. The recording stopped. The room was silent, except for the fluorescent hum and ghosts panting. Thornton lowered his phone. His hand trembled, age or rage, impossible to tell. Where is Nathan Harrow? Evelyn asked. Thornton looked at her, really looked, maybe for the first time. I don't know. That's the truth. The contractor went dark after the extraction, never confirmed delivery to Romania. We assumed he was eliminated anyway. Assumed? The word tasted like copper in Evelyn's mouth. You assumed my son was dead. The contractor was later found in pieces in Belgrade. Professional execution. Someone didn't want him talking. Thornton straightened his jacket. The investigation ended there. Walter spoke from his corner. Liar, the investigation didn't end. You kept looking. That's why you tried to kill me 4 times. You thought I knew where Nathan was. Do you? Walter met Thornton's gaze. No, but I know who does. He pulled out another photo from his deteriorating wallet, handed it to Evelyn. A young woman in military dress uniform, Asian features, serious expression, Sarah Chen. But across the bottom, in handwriting, Evelyn recognized Nathan's precise script, or 4 words, she's alive, trust nobody. The date on the photo, March 1st, 27 days after Nathan supposedly died. The photo trembled in Evelyn's grip. Nathan's handwriting burned across her retinas the way he crossed his T's with that slight upward tilt. The compressed spacing between words when he was urgent, 7 days after his funeral. Her son had held this picture, written these words. Thornton reached for the photo, ghost intercepted, teeth bared, positioning himself between the general and Evelyn. The MP's hands moved to their weapons. Stand down, Base Commander Williams ordered. Sweat beaded along his receding hairline. Everyone stand down. Mason's phone vibrated against the conference table. He glanced at it, then pressed it to his ear. Mason? What when? His face drained of color. Secure the building. Nobody in or out. He lowered the phone. Sarah Chen just walked into the Pentagon. The room contracted. Foster's laptop slipped from her fingers, caught it just before it hit the floor. That's impossible, Thornton said. Chen died in 26. Car accident. I saw the autopsy report. Apparently not. Mason pulled up security footage on Foster's laptop. Pentagon main entrance, 14 minutes ago. The woman on screen wore civilian-clothes jeans, Georgetown University hoodie, baseball cap. But the walk, the way she held her shoulders, the slight favor of her left leg from an old training injury. That's her, Walter whispered. That's Sarah Chen. She'd walked through security, show-dyed, been waved through either the greatest security breach in Pentagon history or she never died. Evelyn said, just like Nathan, you've been hunting ghosts. Michael Morrison moved toward his father's confession documents. Dad wrote something about Chen, page 12. He flipped through the papers. Found it. February 21st, 2000. Chen knows about the rendition plan. Thornton wants her included in the extraction. I convinced him she's more valuable as an inside source, but he's suspicious. I never ordered Chen's death, Thornton said. His composure cracked, showed something underneath, not guilt, but confusion. The accident was real. I had people confirm the body. Whose body? Evelyn stepped closer to Thornton. Ghost moved with her, synchronized, like the body in Nathan's coffin. Another convenient corpse. Foster's fingers flew across her keyboard, pulling Chen's personnel file. It's been modified just yesterday. Someone with skiff-level clearance changed her status from deceased to active duty. Who has that level of access? Mason demanded. 7 people, SecDef, Joint Chiefs. Foster stopped. And someone using Nathan Harrow's authorization code. Evelyn's legs gave out. Michael caught her, guided her to a chair. The room spun fluorescent lights, leaving tracer patterns across her vision. That's impossible, Thornton said. Dead men don't have active authorization codes. They do, if they're not dead. Walter moved to the window, watching the parking garage. More vehicles arriving, not military plates. Mason looked. FBI, that's a full tactical unit. Williams' radio crackled. Base command. We have federal agents at all gates. They're serving warrants. For who, yeah? Williams asked. Everyone in conference room but. Thornton actually smiled a thin, bitter expression. Chen didn't come back alone. She brought insurance. He turned to Evelyn. Your son was always smarter than we gave him credit for. Appears he learned from the best. What are you talking about? You, Mrs. Harrow, the financial analyst who exposed the Brendan Michaels scandal in '03, took down 17 executives with nothing but spreadsheets and patience. Thornton adjusted his collar. Nathan talked about you constantly during his interrogation. Evelyn stood so fast the chair toppled backward. Interrogation? You said he was never found. I said the contractor never confirmed delivery to Romania because we intercepted him first. 3 days of questioning at a black site in Virginia. Your son gave us nothing, not Chen's location, not the backup files, nothing. Ghost's growl escalated. Mason stepped between Evelyn and Thornton. Then where is he? Evelyn's voice cracked. Where is my son? We released him, Thornton said. February 23rd, drugged, disoriented, but alive. Dumped him at a VA hospital with falsified psychiatric papers. The plan was to discredit anything he might say. PTSD, psychotic break, delusional disorder. Who believes a crazy veteran? Walter laughed sharp. Brittle. But he escaped. The Seattle VA. January 20th. That was him. He was there when I was there. Security footage shows a patient leaving Ward 7B that night, Foster confirmed, typing rapidly. but facial recognition can't confirm identity. Someone scrubbed the high-resolution files. The FBI units in the garage began deploying. Evelyn counted agents in tactical gear, setting up a perimeter. This wasn't an arrest. This was a siege. Mason's phone rang again. Unknown number. He almost declined, then reconsidered. Put it on speaker. Hello? Colonel Mason. The voice was female, professional, with a slight California accent. Sarah Chen. Please don't hang up. I have information about Nathan Harrow. Evelyn lunged for the phone. Mason held it steady between them. Where is my son? Safe. Has been for 3 years. We've been building the case, gathering evidence, every document, every recording, every financial transaction. Chen paused. Mrs. Harrow, Nathan wanted to come home. I wouldn't let him, not until we could guarantee his safety and yours. You've been hiding him for 3 years. We've been hiding each other. There are 14 of us now. Service members Thornton and Morrison tried to silence. We formed our own unit, unofficial, unrecognized, but very, very thorough. Thornton moved toward the door. The MPs blocked him. General Thornton, Chen continued, the FBI agents outside have warrants for your arrest, also for Morrison's associates, though Harold himself escaped justice through death. We have everything, including video testimony from the contractor you hired. He's been quite cooperative since we found him in Belgrade. You said he was dead, Michael said to Thornton. I was told he was dead, Thornton corrected. Appears I was misinformed. Foster pulled up another feed. Pentagon, basement level 3. Sarah Chen's in a skiff room with, she zoomed in. That's General Patterson, Joint Chiefs, and FBI Director Coleman, Mason added. This is coordinated at the highest levels. Chen's voice continued. Mrs. Harrow, Nathan wants you to know something. The breakfast you used to make him scrambled eggs with cheese, slightly runny, wheat toast with butter on both sides, not just one, orange juice, no pulp, every Sunday before church. Evelyn's throat closed. Nobody knew those details except, he says to tell you he still can't cook eggs right. They're either rubber or raw, no middle ground. Tears ran down Evelyn's face. Ghost pressed against her leg, whimpering. Where is he? She whispered. Close, very close. But first, we need to secure Thornton. He has extraction protocol. The moment he's truly cornered, a private contractor will try to evacuate him, probably to a non-extradition country. Mason checked his weapon. We have the building locked down. No, you have the obvious exits locked down. Thornton, tell them about the tunnel. Thornton's poker face finally shattered. What tunnel? The one you had built in 22. Connects to the old fallout shelter system. Exits near the motor pool. You've had an escape route this entire time. Williams radioed his security chief. Check the motor pool, now. Static. Then, sir, we've got movement. Black Suburban, no plates. Just pulled out heading north. Chen's voice turned urgent. That's not Thornton. Check your room. Who's missing? Evelyn looked around. Mason, Foster, Williams, Michael, Rosie, Thornton. The 4 MPs, Walter was gone. The old man who could barely stand, who'd been counting floor tiles and fighting pneumonia, had vanished like smoke. On the window where he'd been standing, traced in the condensation from his breath, were GPS coordinates, and below them, 2 words in shaky letters, Find Nathan. Foster's fingers hammered the keyboard, converting Walter's condensation trace coordinates. 47.0379 in 122.97 That's, her breath caught. Cascade Bay Cemetery, northeast corner. Evelyn was already moving, Ghost beside her, matching her pace. Behind them, chaos, Williams shouting orders, MPs restraining Thornton. FBI agents flooding the conference room. None of it mattered. "Mrs. Harrow, wait," Mason called. She didn't stop. Couldn't. The elevator doors were closing when Mason and Michael Morrison squeezed through. Michael's hand went to his sidearm as the car rose. "He won't hurt anyone," Evelyn said. "You don't know that. Man's been on the streets for 9 years, possibly delusional. He gave my son evidence that could have saved his life. Walter's not the enemy." The rain had stopped. Weak February sunlight filtered through breaking clouds, turning the wet pavement into mirrors. Foster's SUV idled at the entrance. Engine running, she'd beaten them up. "Cemetery's 12 minutes," she said, throwing the vehicle into gear before everyone's doors closed. They rode in silence except for ghosts panting and the rhythmic thump of windshield wipers clearing residual mist. Evelyn watched familiar streets blur past the coffee shop where Nathan had his first job, the park where he'd broken his arm at 7, refusing to cry until the bone was set. Cascade Bay Cemetery occupied 40 acres overlooking the Pacific. Established 18 according to the rusted placard, Foster took the service road to the northeast section. Older graves here, some dating to the town's logging days. The black Suburban from the motor pool sat abandoned beside a maintenance shed, doors open, engine ticking as it cooled. Fresh tire tracks led deeper into the cemetery. "On foot from here," Mason said, checking his weapon. They moved between headstones, ghost leading, nose low. The morning dew soaked through Evelyn's shoes. Ravens called from the Douglas firs, harsh voices in the morning quiet. Walter stood at a grave near the fence line, not visiting, digging. A groundskeeper's spade in his trembling hands, pile of dark earth growing beside him. His coat lay discarded, shirt soaked through with sweat and the rain. "Mr. Reed," Mason called. "Put the shovel down." Walter didn't look up. Another spitful of earth. "She's here. Has been all along." "Who's here?" Michael asked. "Chen. The real Chen. The woman at the Pentagon is someone else." Evelyn stepped closer. The headstone was small, weathered granite. Sarah Chen, 1987 to 2000, beloved daughter. The bottom corner had fresh damage recently chipped, revealing lighter stone beneath. "You knew," Evelyn said. "You've known she was dead this whole time." "Suspected. Confirmed 3 months ago when I started sleeping here. Groundskeeper, Filipino man named Romero, told me this grave gets visitors. Same woman, always at night. Leaves origami cranes." Walter pointed to a small collection by the headstone. Paper birds weathered, but intact. Nathan's unit patch had a crane on it. Ghost sniffed the disturbed earth, hackles rising. He backed away, whimpering. "There's something else down there," Walter said. "Not just a body." Mason radioed for a forensics team, but Walter kept digging. The spade hit something solid, not wood, metal. A scratching sound as he cleared more dirt. A military ammunition box, sealed in plastic? Walter's hands shook too badly to open it. Michael knelt. He used his knife to cut through the weatherproofing. Inside USB drives, dozens of them, each labeled with dates from 2014 to 20s. And underneath, wrapped in waterproof fabric, a cell phone. Foster powered it on military encryption, but the battery held charge. One saved video file. Nathan's face filled the screen, thinner, exhaustion carved into every line, but unmistakably him. The timestamp read, February 23rd, 2003 days after his supposed death. "Mom," his recorded voice said. Evelyn's knees buckled. Michael steadied her. "Mom, if you're seeing this, Chen's backup plan worked. I'm alive, but I can't come home. Not yet. They have to believe I'm dead, or they'll kill you." The camera shook Nathan's hand, trembling, or someone else holding it. A woman's voice off screen, slight accent. "Tell her about Seattle." "Right. Seattle, VA, January 20, Ward 7B. I'll leave a message with Walter Reed if he's there. Trust him, Mom. He tried to save me." The recording glitched, resumed. Nathan looked directly at the camera. The woman claiming to be Chen is Lieutenant Jessica Park, Chen's roommate at the academy. She's been undercover since Chen's death, using her identity, the real Chen. His voice broke. The real Chen died getting me out of the black site. Thornton's contractors caught up to us. She held them off while I escaped. Another voice in the background, male, older. Harrow, we need to move. Mom, I'm with good people. Others. Thornton disappeared. We're building something. Can't say what, but when it's time, you'll know. He leaned closer to the camera. Take care of Ghost. And Mom, I'm sorry for all of it. The screen went black. Evelyn grabbed the phone, replayed the video. Nathan's voice washed over her again, older, damaged, but alive. Alive when this was recorded. This was 9 years ago, she said. Where is he now? Walter had stopped digging, sat beside the grave with his head in his hands. I don't know, but she might. A figure emerged from the tree line. Asian woman, mid-30s, Georgetown hoodie from the Pentagon footage, not Sarah Chen Jessica Park, wearing her dead friend's identity like armor. Hello? Mrs. Harrow, she said. We need to talk about Nathan. 3 red dots appeared on Park's chest laser sights from rifles Evelyn couldn't see, sniper positions in the trees. I wouldn't, Park called to the hidden shooters. My team has this cemetery surrounded, plus Mrs. Harrow deserves the truth. Mason's radio crackled. Williams's voice. Colonel, we've lost Thornton. He had a second escape route. Park smiled without humor. No, you didn't lose him. We have him, just like we've had Morrison's real killer. Morrison died of polonium poisoning, Michael said. Yes, but not on Thornton's orders. Park pulled out a phone, showed them a photo. Harold Morrison at a restaurant, accepting a drink from someone just out of frame. February 9th, 24 hours before he died. Who's serving the drink? Evelyn asked. Someone who wanted the investigation to stop. Someone who knew Morrison was about to confess everything. Park zoomed in on the partially visible hand holding the glass military academy ring. Barely visible. Your forensics team will find that ring at Walter's sleeping spot by the library. Walter looked up, confused. That's not mine. I never went to the academy. No. But someone wanted it to look like you killed Morrison. Paint you as a deranged, homeless vet taking revenge. Park pocketed the phone. The same person who's been hunting our unit for 3 years, Ghost growled, but not at Park. At something behind them. Evelyn turned. A figure stood among the headstones 50 yards away. Military bearing, familiar silhouette. As he stepped into the sunlight, Evelyn's world tilted. Nathan, older, scarred across the left eyebrow as Walter had described, but unmistakably her son. He wasn't alone. Behind him, weapon raised, stood someone else in uniform. The angle of morning light obscured the face, but something about the stance, the way they held the rifle. Hello, Evelyn, the figure called, female voice, cold as February rain. You really should have left this alone. The woman stepped forward, and Evelyn saw her face clearly. Emma Morrison, Michael's pregnant wife. Except she wasn't pregnant anymore. The belly had been padding. And the weapon in her hands was aimed directly at Nathan's head. Michael Morrison's face drained to ash. His hand moved toward his weapon, stopped when Emma shifted her rifle's aim from Nathan's head to his chest. Don't, sweetheart. Emma's voice carried false warmth. 3 years of marriage, and you never noticed I'm ambidextrous. I can drop you and still hit Nathan before anyone reacts. Emma. Michael's voice cracked like ice under weight. Not Emma. Never was. She sidestepped, keeping Nathan as a shield between herself and the hidden snipers. Captain Diana Volkov, military intelligence, though the marriage certificate is legal, if that matters. Evelyn couldn't breathe. Nathan stood 20 yards away, close enough to see the scar tissue across his eyebrow, the gray threading through his hair at 36. His hands were raised, fingers spread, his left pinky bent at a wrong angle, old break, badly healed. Mom. His voice carried 9 years of damage. Don't move. She's wearing a dead man's switch. Her heart stops. The cemetery explodes. Evelyn's eyes dropped to Emma's, Diana's left hand, a small device. Thumb pressed to a button. Plastic explosives in the maintenance shed, Diana continued. Enough to level this entire section. Beautiful symmetry, really. All the witnesses, all the evidence, gone in one blast. Ghost crept forward, belly low. Diana's rifle swung toward him. Call off the dog or I paint Nathan's brains across his mother. Ghost, down, Nathan commanded. The dog dropped, whimpering. Michael's hand trembled at his side. The pregnancy. Our children. 3 years. No children. Hysterectomy at 22, field injury in Chechnya. Diana's American accent slipped, revealing something Eastern European underneath. Your father never knew he was funding Russian operations through his greed. The weapons he diverted didn't just generate profit, they went to specific buyers. My buyers. Park moved slowly, hands visible. You're Volkov's daughter, Gregory Volkov, the contractor who refused to deliver faulty equipment, who Morrison and Thornton had executed for it. Diana's finger tensed on the trigger. My father came to America believing in your dream, built a business, then refused one order to send defective armor to soldiers, and they murdered him. Walter struggled to his feet, using the spade as a cane. Your father was a good man. He warned me about the armor plates. Too late. 3 soldiers died. Diana's voice hardened. But that was just business to Morrison. Acceptable losses. So you killed him, Michael said. The polonium. Morrison was already dying. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. Had maybe 2 months. Diana smiled cold, efficient. The polonium just accelerated things and sent a message. Nathan shifted his weight. Diana pressed the rifle barrel against his skull. 9 years, she said. 9 years I've been hunting your son's little resistance group, Mrs. Harrow. Getting close to Michael was just patience, knowing eventually Nathan would surface. You leaked the documents, Park said. The ones Emma Morrison supposedly released this morning. Had to draw Nathan out. He'd never let his mother face this alone. Diana glanced at Evelyn. You raised a predictably noble son. Evelyn found her voice. Let him go. You have me. I'm the one who started this, bringing Walter food, triggering the investigation. You... Diana laughed. You were never the target, just bait. She pulled something from her pocket with her free hand, a phone, tossed it to Evelyn, who caught it reflexively. On the screen, financial records. Transfers from Russian intelligence to Morrison's accounts, then to Deanna's father's company, then seized after his death. $47 million, Diana said. That's what my father's murder netted them. But the real prize was the shipping routes he'd established. Thornton took those over, used them to move weapons for 20 years. Mason's radio crackled. Foster's voice. Sir, we have movement. Multiple vehicles approaching from the south. That would be my extraction team, Diana said. Russian diplomatic immunity. Amazing what you can buy with the right connections. Nathan spoke carefully, each word measured. There's something you don't know. I know everything. 3 years as Michael's wife gave me access to all of Morrison's files. Not all of them. Nathan's eyes found Evelyn's. Tell her about the letter, Mom. Evelyn's mind raced. What letter? Then she remembered the video on the phone from the ammunition box. Nathan had mentioned something else, something about February 10th, Evelyn said. Harold Morrison wrote my son a letter. Diana's grip on the rifle shifted. Morrison never wrote to Nathan. He did, Michael said, understanding flooding his face. Dad mentioned it once when he was drunk. Said he'd warned someone, tried to make it right. Walter pulled a folded paper from inside his sock, the same sock that had held the USB drive. His hands shook as he unfolded it. Morrison gave this to me to mail. Never did. Kept it as insurance. He began reading, Morrison's handwriting visible even from distance. Captain Harrow. Your investigation has triggered something I cannot stop. General Thornton plans to eliminate you. Get out now. Take your mother and disappear. Signed, a coward with too much to lose. Dad tried to save him? Michael's voice broke. Tried to save himself. Diana corrected. Morrison knew if Nathan died, the investigation would intensify. No, Walter said. There's more. He turned the letter over. Different handwriting on the back. Rushed, desperate. Gregory Volkov is my friend. They're going to kill him for refusing the armor shipment. His daughter Diana is 12 years old. If something happens to him, please protect her. She's at St. Catherine's boarding school in Vermont. Diana's rifle wavered. What? Morrison tried to find you after your father died, Walter continued. But you'd already disappeared. Recruited by Russian intelligence at 13, according to the file he kept. You're lying. Michael pulled out his phone, scrolled through photos, found one from his father's study, a drawer he'd discovered after the funeral. Inside years of reports from private investigators, all searching for one person, Diana Volkov. He spent hundreds of thousands looking for you, Michael said. Wanted to apologize, make amends, by marrying me to his son. You targeted me, pursued me at that conference in Denver. Michael's voice went flat. Unless Morrison arranged it, Park finished. Knew Diana was coming for revenge. Positioned you to intercept her. Diana's composure cracked. The rifle shook against Nathan's head. He used me. Even trying to apologize. He used me. Nathan moved not away from the rifle, but turning slowly to face Diana, the barrel now pressed between his eyes. They used all of us, he said. Your father, my mother, you, me. We're all just collateral damage in their war games. Pretty words won't save you. No, but Walter's second USB might. Everyone turned to Walter, who pulled another drive from his coat pocket. Insurance policy, he said. Every transaction, every communication, every order, including the one that killed Gregory Volkov. Signed by Thornton, witnessed by Harrison. Harrison, Mason said. Vice President Harrison. Chief of Staff, back then. Now, next in line for the presidency. Walter held up the drive. This proves he ordered the hits on Volkov, Chen, and a dozen others. Diana's dead man's switch trembled in her grip. Give it to me. Let Nathan go first. The drive, or everyone dies. A new voice cut through the standoff. Actually, nobody has to die. General Thornton emerged from behind a mausoleum, hands raised, not alone, flanked by FBI agents in tactical gear. Captain Volkov, Thornton said. Or should I say, Agent Volkov, FSB decided you're too much of a liability. They've withdrawn your immunity. Diana spun, keeping Nathan between her and the agents. You're lying. Check your phone. Your handler's been trying to reach you. Diana's phone buzzed in Evelyn's hand. Caller ID showed Cyrillic characters. They burned you, Thornton continued. The moment you went rogue, started this personal vendetta, bad for business. You murdered my father, Harrison murdered your father. I just followed orders like a good soldier." Thornton's voice carried decades of exhaustion, like we all did. The cemetery held its breath. Evelyn counted heartbeats, hers racing, Nathan's visible in his throat. Even Ghost had gone still. Then Walter spoke. "There's one more thing." He pulled out a third item, not a USB, but a photograph, handed it to Diana. A young girl, maybe 12, standing beside a tall man with kind eyes, Gregory Volkov and his daughter, before everything went wrong. "Your father gave this to me," Walter said, "the day before he died. Said if anything happened, find his little bird. That's what he called you, his little bird." Diana's dead man switch slipped. Nathan caught it, thumb replacing hers on the button before it could release. For a moment, mother and son stood frozen, Nathan holding death in his hand while Diana crumbled. Then sirens, not American. Different pitch, different pattern. "Russian embassy vehicles," Park said. "2 minutes out." Diana looked at Nathan, then at the switch in his hand. "You could let go. End all of this." "I could," Nathan agreed. "But Mom makes breakfast worth living for." The exact words from his note to Walter. Evelyn's throat closed. Diana pulled a second device from her pocket. Another detonator. "Always have a backup," she said, then pressed it. The maintenance shed exploded. The blast wave hit like a solid wall. Evelyn's body lifted, slammed into wet earth. Ringing filled her ears, high, constant, drowning everything. Dirt and debris rained down. Something sharp scraped across her cheek. Ghost was on her before she could move. 70 pounds of protective instinct, shielding her with his body. Through the ringing, she heard him barking, felt it more than heard it. Vibrations through his ribs against her back. Nathan. Where was Nathan? She pushed up, Ghost allowing it but staying close. 20 feet away. Nathan knelt in the grass, still holding the first dead man switch. Blood ran from his nose. Diana Volkov lay beside him, unconscious or dead, her face turned away. Michael Morrison crawled toward his wife, toward Diana. His uniform was torn, shoulder bleeding. He reached her, turned her over. She was breathing. "Clear the area," Mason shouted, voice muffled through the ear damage. "There could be secondary devices." FBI agents swarmed the cemetery. The maintenance shed was gone, a crater of smoking wood and twisted metal, but the blast had been directed upward, not outward, designed to frighten, not kill. Walter sat against Sarah Chen's headstone, the ammunition box clutched against his chest. His lips were blue. Foster knelt beside him, checking his pulse. "Medic," she called. "We need medics now." Nathan hadn't moved, still kneeling, still holding the switch. Evelyn crawled to him, Ghost following, up close. She could see him shaking micro-tremors through his whole body. "Nathan!" He looked at her. His eyes were wrong pupils, different sizes. "Concussion. Can't let go," he said. She might have lied, might still be live. Bomb squad arrived in full gear. Took 17 minutes to confirm the device was actually dead. Diana's dramatic gesture, more theater than murder. They pried it from Nathan's cramped fingers. Evelyn pulled him against her. He smelled wrong gun oil, dried sweat, something medical. But underneath, faint as memory, the same soap he'd used since high school. "I'm sorry," he whispered into her shoulder. "I'm so sorry, Mom." Russian embassy vehicles screeched into the cemetery. Diplomatic security emerged, weapons drawn. Mason blocked their path. FBI agents forming a line. "Diana Volkov is a Russian citizen," the lead officer said, accent thick. "Diplomatic immunity. Revoked," Thornton said. He pulled out his phone, showed official documentation. "Your government disavowed her an hour ago. She's ours." They loaded Diana into an ambulance. Michael beside her. He looked back once at Evelyn, his face unreadable. 3 years of marriage to a lie. 3 years of sleeping beside his father's killer. Walter's breathing rattled. The medics worked on him. IV lines, oxygen, the choreography of keeping a dying man alive. He reached for Evelyn. "The third drive," he wheezed. "Nathan needs it." Nathan took the USB. His hands still shook. "Harrison," Walter said, "Vice President has to be exposed, or this all happens again." "We have enough," Park said. She'd been quiet through the explosion, watching, recording everything on her phone, with Diana's testimony, Morrison's documents, and Chen's recordings. "We can bring down the entire network." "Chen's dead," Nathan said, "but her work isn't." Park pulled out a tablet, showed them files. She encrypted everything, scattered it across 100 servers. Been gathering it for 3 years. Every transaction, every order, every death. Thornton stood with his hands cuffed, FBI agents on either side. "You have no idea what you're destroying. The programs we funded, the operations, the soldiers who died." Nathan cut him off. "Lisa Webb, Carlos Mendez, Troy Washington, 44 others. I know all their names. Casualties of—" Nathan stood, swayed, but stayed upright. "They weren't casualties. They were murders. You sent them out in armor you knew wouldn't work." They loaded Walter into the second ambulance. Evelyn climbed in beside him. Nathan followed, Ghost jumping in last. The doors closed on Thornton being read his rights, on the crater where the shed had been, on 9 years of lies. 6 months later, the Nathan Harrow Walter Reed Foundation operated from a strip mall office in Cascade Bay. Nothing fancy, donated furniture, volunteer staff, coffee maker that only worked half the time. Evelyn sorted through applications. 17 families this week, all military, all struggling with the loss. Each file represented a soldier failed by the system Walter and Nathan had exposed. Nathan worked at the desk across from her. Still thin, still damaged, but present. He'd testified for 3 weeks at the closed hearings. Harrison had been indicted. Thornton got life without parole. Diana Volkoff, 30 years, possible deportation after. Michael Morrison knocked on the open door. He looked older, grayer. The divorce had been finalized last month. "The memorial's ready," he said. They drove to the cemetery together. A new stone beside Sarah Chen's black granite. Simple inscription, Walter Edmund Reed. Fortitude, he kept watch. Walter had lived 6 days after the explosion, long enough to give his testimony via video link, long enough to see his daughter, Sophie, one more time. She'd come from Seattle with her children, forgiven him in stilted sentences that meant everything. The memorial was small. Rosie from the diner, Mason and Foster in civilian clothes, Park, who still went by Chen sometimes, honoring her friend. A dozen homeless veterans Walter had fed over the years. Nathan spoke briefly. "Walter Reed saved my life twice, once by giving me evidence, once by waiting 9 years to find my mother. He was the most honest man in a system built on lies." After the service, Evelyn returned to the foundation office. Ghost curled in his bed in the corner, moving slower, these days at 13, but still watching everything. She made sandwiches for tomorrow's veteran breakfast program, peanut butter on the left slice, jam on the right. Nathan's rule from childhood, Walter's preference on the street, now foundation tradition. Nathan helped, working in comfortable silence. They'd found their rhythm, not trying to recover 9 lost years, just building forward from where they stood. "Mom," he said suddenly, "the thing about breakfast, worth living for. Walter told you, he told me everything." Nathan nodded, kept assembling sandwiches. Outside, rain started again, Oregon's eternal baptism, washing everything clean or trying to. At 5 p.m., they locked up. Drove to Evelyn's cottage in Nathan's used truck. He couldn't handle anything that sounded military. Ghost rode between them, head on Nathan's knee. The cottage felt smaller with Nathan home, but right, they made dinner together, nothing fancy. Spaghetti and salad, talked about the foundation, about families they'd help, about anything except the 9 years between that night. Evelyn heard Nathan's nightmares through the thin walls. Didn't go to him, they'd learned that made it worse. But Ghost padded to his room, settled on the floor beside his bed. The nightmares quieted. In the morning, she'd make breakfast, scrambled eggs with cheese, slightly runny, wheat toast with butter on both sides, orange juice, no pulp. The same breakfast she'd made every Sunday before church, before deployments, before everything broke. Nathan would eat it all, even though she knew his appetite was shot from medication. They'd go to the foundation office, help more families. Tell truth to people who'd been fed lies. It wasn't justice. Justice would have been Nathan never disappearing, Walter never losing everything, 47 soldiers coming home. But it was something, a small repair in the fabric of things. Tomorrow, more veterans would come for breakfast, more families would apply for help, more truth would surface from the wreckage of lies. And Evelyn would make sandwiches, peanut butter on the left, jam on the right, because sometimes the smallest acts of care are all that stand between a person and the abyss. Ghost sighed in his sleep, legs twitching from dreams of younger days. Nathan's breathing evened out. The rain continued, keep imperfect and incomplete, moved forward, one meal at a time. Every Tuesday and Friday, we feed 30 veterans behind the library where Walter once sat, not charity community. Nathan learned this from Walter. Dignity matters more than food. Mrs. Chen Jessica Park legally changed her name, brings Korean War veterans from the senior center. They sit with the younger ones, Iraq and Afghanistan mostly, sharing silence that says more than words. Rosie donated a coffee urn, keeps it filled dawn to dusk. Sophie Reed, Walter's daughter, drives down monthly from Seattle, teaches financial literacy to veterans transitioning off the streets. Her children help serve breakfast, learning what their grandfather never could teach them directly. That service isn't about glory, but showing up. Nathan still can't sleep past 4 a.m. I hear him in the kitchen, making sandwiches for men who remind him of soldiers he lost. Ghost stays by his side, arthritis slowing him but devotion intact. This morning, a young veteran asked Nathan if it gets better. Nathan looked at me, then at the photo of Walter we hung where he used to sit. No, he said, but you get better at carrying it. That's all we can do, carry each other, one breakfast at a time. Disclaimer, this story was inspired by real events, but created solely for entertainment purposes. It does not condone, encourage, or promote any form of violence or harmful behavior. All characters and events are products of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to real persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental. The story addresses themes of military service, loss, and redemption to honor veterans and their families, not to glorify war or violence. If you or someone you know is struggling with military-related trauma, please seek professional help through the Veterans Administration or local support services.